Woo, y'all. Welcome back to the Real Truth Podcast, formerly known as Tea Time with Tatiana. I am Tatiana Samaria, and I am the host of this amazing podcast. I'm excited that you are here watching or listening to the first episode, the pilot of this podcast. And if you have been with me since Tea Time with Tatiana, I really strongly appreciate you for being here because y'all have seen me grow up, basically. Maybe not consistently, but if you listen to some of my fewer podcasts before this, then you will probably hear the growth. I don't know if I sound older, if I look older. I don't really know, but I know that I feel older. I know the wisdom is there. I know that I am not the same person that I was when I first started this podcast. But again, I am just excited to share my life with you, share my experiences with you. But most importantly, I am excited to share God with you. That is what this podcast is truly all about. So, where do I even start, y'all? So the last time I was behind this microphone was 2021. I was about to close on my home and I was just so excited. I was so excited to buy a house, of course, to get out from under my parents' house. But I was also focused on three things. Number one, being consistent, losing weight, and to be able to create freely without any interruption. I mean, that was the biggest thing for me because I just felt like within the space in my parents' home, I wasn't able to fully create like I wanted to without an interruption. If anybody knows my parents, they know they will knock on my door at any time. And again, I had no issue with that. It was their house. I had to respect them. But at the same time, I just needed a space to just be me. Whenever I needed to pick up a camera or pick up the microphone and just talk and know that I'm not going to get interrupted, that's what I felt like I needed. And I needed a space for me to really just create. So I was excited about that. And I'm still excited about that. But it's funny because I have not been able to focus on these three things until now, 2023. And I'm just being completely honest with you. Moving out of my parents' house brought on another level of me, another level of Tatiana. Leaving that house showed me. Like, I had to look in the mirror. I had to deal with myself every single day, right? Like, this whole entire house is just me. So it was me waking up every single day, dealing with myself. I learned and I discovered the habits that I had, the good and bad habits. I was learning literally me, so much so that that's all I had the capacity to do and to learn. I had no time I didn't have any capacity to lose weight. I didn't have the capacity to create. All I could do was learn myself. And you may think like, oh girl, it took you 2 years. Yeah, it really did. Because when I first obviously was in my home, I got back on YouTube and I got monetized in a couple of months because people were so excited about that content that I was producing regarding my home. But then I just hit this space after a few months and I was just like, okay, I was so focused on working and making sure I was paying my bills on time and me, obviously, like I said, viewing myself and looking into myself and seeing the pieces of myself that I didn't like and that I did like and what's wrong with you. And it was just like, again, it was a whirlwind of emotions for the past 2 years. And what I thought would have been like the best days of my life, I can't say they were my worst, but they were the hardest. So the past 2 years, and I'm talking about past 2020. Everybody talk about how 2020 was crazy because of COVID. And honestly, 2020 wasn't that bad for me. 2021 and 2022 were so hard emotionally, physically, spiritually. I was just a mess. I was a big ball of mess. I was just a freaking mess, y'all. And it was just like, I would cry at the drop of a dime. I would get frustrated over stupid things. The job I was working at was just sucking my life and my energy. So I just had no room to be creative. My brain was not in creative mode. I had spurts of motivation. I think everyone does. They have spurts of motivation and spurts of creativity. And those were the days where I would pick up my camera, I would vlog, or I would do a sit down video, but it wasn't consistent enough to build, a business or to be a full-time creator or to take my personal brand to the next level. Like, I wasn't that consistent. So again, the past 2 years have been a big whirlwind, but I am now in a space where I could literally say, wow, like I can look at those last 2 years and know that, yes, even though you were a big ball of mess and you were emotional and you were just all over the place, look at where God has brought you. And that is where I am right now in the year 2022. So what is this podcast going to be about? At the beginning, when I launched Tea Time with Tatiana, it was a podcast that was about a young girl who was super excited about Jesus. She was super excited to share topics with her generation. And it was for like the non-corny girls. Do not judge me when I say that though, because I don't want y'all to be like the non-corny girls. Listen, I was never the girl who was like, I mean, I might have been different. Of course, I think every Christian girl who doesn't necessarily adapt to societal's ways of life in high school or in college, I think everyone thinks they're a little bit different. But I don't necessarily consider myself corny. Like, people liked me. I don't know. In high school and college, I had friends. Like, I was chilling, and I just felt like because I had that personality, I really wanted a platform to share with other young Christians that like you could literally be like the ball of energy. You can be dope. You can be the center of attention, but you can also be different at the same time. You don't have to adapt to what people want you to adapt to. And that's what the podcast was about. I was talking about different topics, whether it was life after college, dating, millennials needing to go to church. I forgot what the topics I had. Building a personal brand. I was literally talking about all those things 7 years ago. And that was just kind of like what the podcast was about. But y'all, 2023 podcast? Oh, mighty God. Listen, it's about to get a little crazy. So I feel like now that I've grown up, now that I've seen a little bit, now that I've experienced life a tad bit, I feel like God is definitely pushing me into a new season of not just this podcast, but of being vulnerable. I absolutely hate it. But when I discovered that God wanted me to change the name of my podcast, I knew what that was going to come with. Anytime in the Bible when God changes somebody's name, y'all know it gets real. So when God said you need to change the name of your podcast, I said, to what? Like, what do you mean? Tea Time with Tatiana has always just been the thing. It rolls off the tongue. Everybody loves the theme song. What type of theme song am I going to do now? Like, I was just thinking about the wrong things instead of him really speaking to me being, this is why I need you to change it. And I had no idea the 2 years that just went by was the whole reason he wanted me to change the name. Like, I'm about to show you some things. You about to experience life a little bit. And in order for you to grow up and be a better person and to really share with your generation and other people about me, I need you to change the name. So the Real Truth Podcast, it is still about real life issues that point back to a real life Jesus. That has not changed. But again, I've grown up. I have grown up. It's less tea and more realness. Okay. So, again, I really just wanted this podcast to be about me and God really just wants to be this podcast about showing the real truth about him, topics and Bible. It's not a Bible study. It's just simply a discussion. And I'm just going to bring my 2 cents to some things, you know what I'm saying? Because I just feel like, for example, let's say a church mother comes up to you as a young adult telling you don't have sex. Right? But you are one horny little thing. Like, you're just like, okay, well then why do I feel like this? Or what do I do when I feel like this? Or is it okay to masturbate? Or is it okay to do that? Like, these young adults nowadays have some explicit, crazy questions, and we have to be prepared and ready to answer them. And I think my generation, the millennial generation, had those questions too, but nobody knew how to answer them. And now we, the millennials, like, we're the adults, we're the aunties, and we're the old ones where we have to answer these questions. I feel like we're more prepared to answer those questions because we once were there where we wanted those questions answered. And again, that's what this podcast is about. It's the real truth about some crazy topics. Like, I'm not about to sugarcoat nothing with y'all. I had one of my little brothers stayed over here a while ago, and we had a really deep conversation for a brief bit just about some of those things. Like, this generation is looking at things. They have access to more things. And y'all thought MySpace and the internet and AIM was what it is with this? With our generation? With them, they, child, Twitter porn is real. Like, that's a real thing. and TikTok and all this other stuff. And it's like, y'all don't realize the power that y'all have placed into those little devices that y'all give them. And wow, like, I don't want to sound like somebody's old auntie, because again, I want this podcast to be for everybody, for the young, the old, the millennials, whatever. But that's what this is going to be about. It's really going to shine light and not sugarcoat a darn thing with y'all. The real truth is going to happen, but we're also going to back up some scripture with it, right? Because I don't want to ever give you an opinion or give you my peace of mind or, my little 2 cents without really digging into the Bible and into scripture and letting you guys know what Jesus says about it. Because at the end of the day, my opinion doesn't matter. It's all about his opinion. So as weird as this sounds, I feel like this is my beginning, which is why the name of this pilot is called On Your Mark. Y'all, when God gave me that title, I just started laughing. I just started laughing because, for one, I'm a runner. I used to run a little bit before high school, and in high school, I was a track runner. And if anyone knows about the phrase on your mark, when you're a runner, obviously, you get into your position and, whoever is about to shoot the gun, they say on your mark, get set, go, whatever. So I just thought it was funny because I just felt like for the past couple of years, God has literally been positioning me to get ready to hear the gun go off, like to get ready to just, whatever the gun represents in your life, it's finna go off, right? But you have to make sure you're in position first. So when I put this title onto this pilot, I was just like, wow, God, this is funny. Like, who knows what this podcast is going to do, how it's going to free people, what it's going to be for some people. And here's the reason why I won't necessarily say I've been running from doing this podcast, but here's the reason why it is a little tough for me to really put this out there, like why it's taking me so long, basically. So for number one, it's rough when you're real. It is very rough when you're real. Like when you're a real person, when you're a person that don't take no mess, you don't like messy people, you don't like messy things. When you are a real person, it is rough for you because number one, people think they know you. Right. And then you have some people who don't know you at all, obviously. But when you get real, they start looking at you like you're crazy. And I just feel like I've always been that real, authentic person to be like, I'm not conforming to the world, number one. But I'm also not about to change for you. Like, I don't care how popular you are. I don't care how many people like you. I don't care. Like, I'm me. God is my father. And if I don't bang with you because of him, or if I don't just bang with you just because I don't bang with you, then I ain't finna bang with you. Like, so that's one reason why. Number two, the enemy starts to act like he knows you for real. When you start to open up, when you start to be about your father's business, the enemy tries to come in to feed you these things and deceive you and just manipulate you. And really, like, try to bamboozle you into some things like, oh, I know what type of men you like, or I know what type of food you like, or I know the moves that you be making. And you be like, you may think that you know me, but no one knows me like Jesus. And had to get to this point where let me put my mind and my focus on him, on Jesus, so that I can discover who I am in him, because the enemy is really good at convincing me that this is what I like and this is the type of person I'm trying to be. He's real good at it because I may be that messed up person at the moment and I'm feeding and I'm believing the lies that he's telling me because I don't know who I'm truly supposed to be. So again, the enemy starts to really act like he knows you when you really start being open and real. And I'm like, God, you want me to do this podcast, but like, can you put this man in his place then? Because I know the type of attacks that is going to come when I attach this with my life, right? And then number three is vulnerability. I hate being vulnerable. I'm not going to say I hate sharing my life because I think I'm a pretty open person for the most part. I'm very protective over my life, over the people that are connected to it. And I share with who I want to share with, not necessarily a platform. I don't need a YouTube channel. I don't need a podcast, to share my life, to be vulnerable, or to share God. But for some reason, he wants me to be here. So this is where I am. But again, I hate being vulnerable. I knew that with changing the podcast, the name, changing the direction of it, that it would come with me being vulnerable, with me being open, with me having to tell y'all a little bit of my business. And that's where I was just like, God, they don't know me like that. And I don't want folk looking at me like, oh, she act like she perfect, or she act like she this, or she act like she know it all. Just like the enemy, y'all don't know me, so please don't try me, okay? Don't do that. But I'm cool. I'm a down-to-earth person. I think I'm likable, you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know. I hope y'all continue to listen to this podcast. I really do. I hope you continue watching, whether you came from Tea Time or whether you came from YouTube on my channel or Instagram, wherever you came from. I really hope you guys keep watching, because this is not easy for me, but it's not about me. That's the thing. Like, it's about the real truth. It's about the unadulterated truth, the truth that cannot be tamed, the truth that cannot be sugar-coated, that cannot be changed. It's simply about Jesus, and he's the real truth behind this entire idea, okay? So although I am uncomfortable, and although I am, again, excited and terrified at the same time, I don't know what this podcast is going to do for you, or what it's going to do for me even, or whatever. And I may not be the only person behind this microphone. Of course, hopefully, eventually in the future, when I get more people onto the podcast, if there's a topic or if there's something that you guys want to talk about and I don't have the answer, then yeah, I'm going to bring somebody on, whether it's my sister or my best friends or my pastor or my mom or whoever it is. Yeah, let's have this conversation. Or even if I bring is Gen Z on here, you never know. I might bring my little brother on here to have a conversation. But seriously, like, I don't want to be the center of attention. Number one, whatever I talk about in these next few episodes did not come from me. I'm letting y'all know. It didn't take 2 years just for me to come behind this microphone to tell y'all how my day was, or to tell y'all how much weight I lost, or to tell y'all how much water I drank for the day, or to tell anybody else's business. Like, you know, this is not what this podcast is about. So we may go over some community events, some things that are happening in the community, some things that people are really talking about on their timelines. You know, the structure of the show is not really going to change. But at the end of the day, the focus is on the real truth, and that is Bible, and that is Jesus. So I love y'all. I thank y'all so much for watching. I'm excited for this new season. If you are excited for this season, if you have any topics you want me to talk about, make sure you hit me up, comment on this video, inbox me on Instagram, do whatever you need to do, and I'll make sure I respond. So I love y'all. I'll see y'all in the next one. Peace out.